Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. Today, after we get off of the YouTube, we're going to start with building the board, the chairman, and work our way through. We're going to work our way through at least twice and possibly 3 times, depending on the thickness of your lack of comprehension. We didn't used to do it that way. We used to do the board all in the last day and a half. And we used to answer all the questions in the last day and a half. And there were no questions in between. And as you can probably imagine, the seminars went smooth as baby shit. Because you weren't asking stupid shit until the end. And then hopefully by the end you understood more, so you had less spaces to ask stupid shit. That was the good news, and that was easy for me to do the seminar. The bad news was, most of you, because you don't take notes, or you don't take copious notes, forgot your fucking question from the second and third and fourth day by the time the end of the fourth day and the fifth day came around, and the sixth day. So we experimented, gathering data. I now know gathering data that answering the questions when they came up was better. And I know from business, for example, I'm going to give you a bonus. If I give you a bonus weekly, it has more effect than if I give you a bonus yearly. Because it's tied closer to the event that you earned the bonus. And we're going to talk about bonuses and compensation later. But so we answer questions now as they come up. Although for your seminar, we filtered a number of the questions out because I said we're not going to answer questions that I know if you read the material, and there was a lot of material that you should have covered, you shouldn't be asking that question. And again, not apologizing, but in the beginning I said that for some of you it's going to be more of a hardship because you're not as quick. Well, none of you are quick. I mean, we haven't had somebody that, really gifted in here 25 years. Maybe never. I'm giving a couple of the benefit of the doubt. Before I had data. Before I started collecting data. In the first 6 or 7 years of the seminar, we didn't collect data. Because I thought the data was like toilet paper. I'm a believer. I'm a born-again believer. Because I've seen where we track things, and it actually does give me insight. I.e., I read the homework, yada, yada, okay. But the new excuse for not getting the work done, the new excuse for you not doing the QLA model more rapidly, the new excuse for you taking longer to do your first deal, what Corona has brought out about how supply chains, that's the new excuse for everything. And when you're in the deal, 30 years ago when I started giving these seminars, it took, roughly speaking, to do a $100 million deal, it took, roughly speaking, about 45 days. This is before the sophisticated computers, before the algorithms, et cetera, et cetera. Now it takes 60 to 75 days. We've got all the equipment known to, Jesus, but it takes us about 50% longer. And it's no different garbage in, garbage out. If you don't change the input and you push the send button, you're going to get the same fucking answer time after time after time. Does everybody understand that? Then why does it take us 50% longer? Because we got no huevos now. We've got nobody that wants to step up and make a decision. They're all afraid. Not just in this seminar, the world. Before Corona, Gallup, which is one of the leading poll makers or whatever, did a survey, and 87% of the world's unhappy. 87. I'm surprised it's that low. And that's everybody from Ethiopia to Paris to you name it, 87%. Now, a preponderance of that is Ethiopia, et cetera, where 100% of the people are unhappy. 87% of the people that wake up every morning wish they didn't wake up. That's pretty staggering. And that's you. But the people that you're going to be looking for, and there's only one moving part in the QLA model, and that's a motivated seller, are more unhappy than you. Hard to believe, but true. And we've got reams of data. And the worse the economics of the world are, i.e. 2000, you wanted to know if it was going to be another 2008 or 9. I mean, we were making money like we were shitting gold bars during the crisis. Literally shitting gold bars because everybody was scared shitless. And during the 90-day or 100-day recession that we had back in 2020, we were shitting gold bars. And we shit gold bars all the way through arguably the end of Corona, which would be probably the end of last year, which is just a month away. The worse it gets, the better it gets for us. The worse. And now at some juncture, I may not be alive when it happens, the lines cross and it's even not good for us. I've never experienced that personally in my 52-year career, but I know that nothing's forever. Just as I said for a year and a half, when we were at a 70-year high in the various markets, in the various indices, nothing lasts forever, kids. And when Bitfuck went up to 59 or 60, whatever went up to 1,000, nothing's forever, kids. And I said, if you remember, enjoy the ride. And remember, not just for equity that we generate and generational wealth, but a rising tide, all the boats go up. And you essentially, your economic lives, except for a couple of you that are older, we're in a rising market, roughly speaking, from 2008-9 to 2020. And that interruption was Corona. But we have paid people, smart people at MIT, which I consider smart people, Cambridge, where Sir Isaac Newton came out of, the thought that because we were so sophisticated now, a few months ago, we were going to preclude ever having down markets. Because of this level of sophistication in the algorithms, et cetera, we were never going to have to suffer through or labor through bad times. We had kids that grew up that way. And the kids that, for the most part, dominated the crypto fuck world were from that era, from that ilk. That was their genre. And people like Charlie Munger, who said that Bitfuck was rat poison squared. I'm not sure what that means. But when Charlie utters it, it means something. And a lot of smart people, myself included, although blockchain is the future of the world. That is, blockchain. But that's not crypto fuck. Okay, blockchain, when you differentiate those two things, and of course now we're rallying, everybody says it's going to go to 4 million again. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin went to 4 million. Now, I normally save this for the end, and I showed you the stats vis-a-vis if you use the same Warren Buffett model, you invest all the dividends and all the capital gains back, you got more money than God. Okay? Well, just as with Warren Buffett's example, nobody does that. I don't know one white, black, or yellow man that has ever invested all his dividends and all his capital gains back in the deal, so he got a overall blended return on investment. Nobody does that, but it's a great stat. It's a great stat. The closest we've come to are the people that have been at this, 5 or 10 or 20 years, that have rolled up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 industries and exited 5 times and then put their money back in. And remember I told you, this model is like stealing candy from a baby or shooting fish in a barrel. And if you have money, it's the mafia model without a gun. Because the real stipulation or the real firm guideline is after a motivated seller, cash flow, free cash flow has to cover debt service. And sometimes free cash flow, will not cover debt service. And you're $50,000 a month short, or $10,000 a month short, or $1 million a month short, depending on how much money you have. And then you can step up like a superhero and connect that dot, and it's even better. The rates of return are even, more significant, notwithstanding you have money in the deal. And right now we're in the prognosticators, which I tried to stay up a little later last night to think. I wanted to hear what the bullshit artists, the moving heads on BBC and Al Jazeera and CNN and CNBC were saying. And it was same. They were saying they were full of the same bullshit as normal, but the people are jumping back on the bitfuck wagon, and they're talking about a bottom. And I'm not here to talk about that. I don't want to give a shit if it's a bottom, but there's something that is really, it's hard for the kids to distinguish. Even though I make fun of your 401ks in America or your pension plans or whatever you have them, because they don't amount to shit. 67 or 69%, again, Gallup, of people that retire don't retire with enough money to live the way they want to live. So call it 2/3. So you work 25, 30, 40 years, and what do you got? Fuck all. The days of you working 30, 40 years for AT&T or whoever, getting a pension and getting a gold watch, not as nice as this platinum watch, are over. And that's why they've given the ownership and the responsibility and the accountability back to the employee to manage his own pension fund, because the pension fund results were shit. So that happened about 20, 25 years ago. And so now we are where we are, and everybody, not everybody, but it's the civilized West, as it's called, the employees are responsible for their own retirements, except if you're Asian. And then you're going to take care of your parents because that's how they trained you. You're their pension plan. And that's wrong on so many levels. I could speak a year, of course, on how wrong that is. But it's still there. And I'm not going to change it. And one of the things I learned many, many years ago, and it's one of the mantras, is don't waste time on things you can't change. And so I'm not going to change the Asian culture that's lasted 50, 80, 100,000 years. So continue to take care of your parents. That's cool, But we're at a different kind of juncture. And he asked me if it was going to be like the 2008-9 collapse. And I said, no, it's going to be different. It's going to be a different collapse. And I told you the only way around that collapse is for us to debase the money. And for every dollar you've got, for every euro you've got, for every Swiss franc you've got, they cut them in half. You go to bed Friday night, and on Monday morning, they'll probably have a bank holiday unannounced Monday, and Tuesday the bank's open, and everybody's money's worth 50% less. It will actually take about a 42 or 43% debasement of currency worldwide to get rid of all the deficits in the world. That's a hell of a note. But it's never going to happen, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about things that, it's not going to happen. No president, no prime minister, no anybody that's ever elected in office, myself included, when I get elected, is going to do that, because he'll be a one-term person, and nobody wants that legacy. They're interested in building their libraries, et cetera, and collecting money for various philanthropic organizations that they represent. So since that's not going to happen, we're going to live with a deficit until everything implodes. And we get to the Mad Max, which is coming just like I took a shower and brushed my teeth this morning. Mad Max is coming. When you take what you want and shoot them down on the street like dogs. I wish I was 25 years old, so I'd have 50 years to live into that. But, I'm not. I'm 77, but that is my environment. I was born 200 or 300 years too late. I am going to reinstitute, I'm not sure I'll get the votes, dueling in Parliament. Pistols or swords, asshole. I'll meet you in the main square at sunrise. And we'll get a lot of shit done a lot quicker. I am a world-class shot. And I guess I could learn defense, and that's the way we're going. That's the way we're going. This model will work then, pistols or swords. The Medellin drug cartel doesn't come here because my model doesn't work. But the question is, and I started to look at some homework this morning, is whether you can do it. That's the question. And that's the fear you have. And that's the basis of your questions and the basis of all the questions we've listened to so far on the webinars. You can hear the fear in their voice. I don't have 1,000 people that will get up here and tell you how it worked, but I certainly have 300 or 400 at this juncture. I have thousands that have made it work, but whether they'll talk to you, that's a whole other thing. That's why that only represents about 20% of the Hall of Fame, because their fear is that you're competition. I know you're not competition, but their fear is that you are competition. So the question starting today, I mentioned late yesterday afternoon, how does this affect me and how do I take direct action for what I'm doing? Many of you in this room still have not picked an industry. You have the reason I give you all that shit to read and all that time is so you have an industry by the time you fucking get here. Only 2 or 3 of you have. But that's how you've lived your life. You have not run towards the gunfire and killed everything in front of you. You've kept your head down. Stay out of trouble. When I went to school the first day, when I was 5 years and a few months, my mother walked me not right up to school because she didn't want to embarrass me. So in my neighborhood, that your mom walking you to school. So a couple blocks where she could look through the trees of the little park that's next to the school to make sure I got in the building. And she says, keep your head down. Stay out of trouble. Don't ask questions. Okay? Of course, I didn't do any of that. And when I had my reminiscent walking through hell with Sally a few months ago, and I busted this guy, put this guy's eyeballs out, I busted his, it was like memory lane. And when I go back to Los Angeles in a couple months, and we're going to go back, and I'm going to see what else I can do for the grammar school. But as soon as I found out Marilyn Monroe went to my grammar school, I was as happy as fucking Larry. I only wish that she wasn't 19 years ahead of me. I would have fucked that where she breathes. I used to go around, little girls used to wear training bras. I don't know if they still do. When they had training bras, and I used to be around undoing their training bras. I did all kind of shit. When I'm 7, 8, 9 years old. Just imagine Marilyn Monroe. I would have convinced her not to kill herself. Now, see, that's how I think. Just like when I asked Gina Lola Bridget out on her 50th birthday. I've always run towards the gunfire. I've never shied away. Now is the time. In the next 24 hours, you better decide where the fuck you're going. Otherwise, the last 3 days of the seminar are going to be a waste to you. I'm going to say it again slow. In the next 24 fucking hours, you better decide which motherfucking industry and which motherfucking vertical you're going to be in. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to connect the dots for the seminar starts tomorrow morning. It doesn't take any genius. If it took genius, there'd be almost nobody up there, and there'd be nobody in here. What it takes is the ability to believe in yourself enough to make a decision. Believe in yourself. One of the reasons we have so many Bible thumpers, holy rollers, God botherers, whatever you want to call them, is because they believe in something. I said it yesterday. I've never met anybody in here that has actually seen their deity or higher power. They've sensed them around them, but they've never seen them. And they believe in them on faith, based on faith. And the people that are most successful with this model, based on faith, that it works. I made it work. A lot of kids have made it work. But the question still is, Can you make it work? And the answer is yes. I'm the only guy that's done this on the planet, created. And I've been doing it 30 years, almost. We have countless case studies, if you will. I don't like to use that, but case studies. But just because Gabriel can do it doesn't mean you can do it, does it? Nope. Just because Marcus Bauer, your namesake, does it, doesn't mean you can do it. And you know that. And I know that you know that I know it. And that's the fear. And once you overcome that, I mean, even before you do your first deal is really the cement. Okay? It's like when I first started giving seminars, there was a guru or two that had read 700 books, supposedly. And at that time, I had done about 700 or 800 and been involved in 700 or 800 transactions. And what would you rather do? Be taught by somebody who read 700 books or did 700 deals? The best book, I've never read a book on sex, but I'm told the best book on sex isn't like real sex. So a bunch of you have read a bunch of books. And where's that got you so far? And now it's beyond books. Now it's fucking podcasts and all these other things. And what has it gotten you? Not a fucking thing. I bet some of you in this room went and listened last night to somebody's fucking podcast. I'd bet my left nut. How? Why? Here, I'm saying why now. How is that possible? It's like you're seated at the right hand of motherfucking financial God. And you go and listen to some cocksucker's podcast. How is that fucking possible? Because you're a fucking pendejo moron. And you don't deserve anything other than what you've already received. And that's to be a fucking dingleberry where I missed wiping my ass this morning. Last night you saw Steve, right? Comments about, well, full disclosure, I may be one of the last persons that ever saw him alive in Bangalore, India, at a private exclusive club. There's a dance floor. Sally and I were there as guests of somebody else. And Steve was in the middle of the dance floor by himself with his eyes closed, dancing like this. For not 1 hour, not 2 hours, not 3 hours, but more than 4 hours. And then finally, when the place was closing down, the general manager came up and says, Mr. Jobs, the band's gone. There's nobody here. Did he leave? No, he didn't give a fuck that the place was closed. Don't confuse me with the facts. Comments, questions about Mr. Jobs? Yes, in the back.
Whenever he had an idea that he wanted to execute on, nobody else could sway him from changing his mind pretty much. Once his mind was made up, he just followed through no matter what anyone else said.
Correct? But all the guys, all the icons that you revere because of what they've accomplished, and he's one that really did change the world. Okay? A lot of guys that say they changed the world haven't. But he was at the other end of the continuum vis-a-vis wanting to be liked as effective. He didn't give a fuck about what anybody thought. Everybody in this room, to one degree or another, carries that as baggage, what other people think of you. In a lot of cases, women, what their mom thinks. We've had a woman here about 9-10 years ago in the other room, the other seminar room, that talked to her mother between 15 and 20 times a day on the phone. Mother wasn't dying of cancer. Mother was a toxic fucking cunt that should have never been born. And her daughter was a toxic fucking cunt that should have never been born. You can't talk to your mom 15 or 20 times a day about anything productive. The only thing that happens is she makes you as sick as she is. And women, in my experience, are more toxic than men. There's a bunch of good things about gals, but there's a bunch of bad shit too. They are more toxic than men. They never forget or forgive. Never. And every one of us came out of one. Every one of us came out of one. Steve Jobs. What else? Yes, sir.
He had so much baggage, but he managed to funnel it in a way, consciously or unconsciously, who knows, that he managed to create something beautiful out of it. Although everyone hated him, the way he was doing it, at the end, he was the one that managed to create something beautiful out of it.
Well, I don't know about the beauty. You're reading too much shit into it, but why aren't you that way? You make it sound easy. Fuck. Other than the cheap cliche, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Why has that ability missed your lifestyle? You're the average of the 4, 5, or 6 people that you spend the most time with. Those 4, 5, or 6 people are normally a mom, maybe a dad, but a mom, an older sibling, a grandparent, right? And how'd that work out for you? It didn't. Or as they say here, it didn't. And I've already gone through some facts that, almost 40% of the people, millennials, don't make as much money as their parents. 35% of men still live at home. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. Well, I guess that beauty formula doesn't work for everybody. You are who you hang around with. Poorness rubs off. I asked you, what's your parents, grandparents' highest accomplishment? 0, 0, 0, and 0, nothing, nothing, and nothing. And you, nothing. And, I don't know if there's been 100 Steve Jobs or 10 Steve Jobs or a million Steve Jobs. But you don't have to explain about Steve Jobs, the name, do you? He was a first-class asshole. Only recognized his daughter when he found out she was smart. And when his birth parents found out who he was, they gave him up for adoption. He told him to piss off. Didn't want to have anything to do with him, as I would have. He didn't ask them why. Why did you abandon me? See, you dipshits would want to know why. Look at yourself in the fucking mirror, and that'll tell you why they abandon you. If you think, you know how they say in these commercials where fat people wearing lingerie and shit like that, which just grinds my ass. Everybody's special. Everybody's, you heard that shit, right? What a load of hot cock that is. You're not special. You're not even mediocre at best. You're a joke. But nobody tells you. Except here. And why do I keep telling you? Because it works. Because someplace down deep in the recesses of your little pea brain, I may be able to snap something where the synapses weren't connected, and then they connected, and the rest of your life is different. That doesn't happen very often. Some of the people that you heard so far, I've been able to do that. But you've got the book, Release Your Brakes, by Jim Newman, one of my mentors. Now, how do I why are my mentors, these guys, world class? And yours, or hot cock nothing. Because I've had the self-confidence. When I was a kid, I thought all girls wanted to fuck me. I didn't ask, I thought, other than I'm a world-class fuck, and you can't get your willy wet. Steve Jobs was a prick. First class. What else about Steve? Yes, sir.
Have a question around
Sure.
self-esteem. So, how did he develop that self-esteem? He was adopted, and he said, "I am right," and he was right several times.
He was wrong a bunch of times too, but he didn't let the wrong. I'm not trying to interrupt your question. He didn't allow his mistakes to get away for his future successes. Remember, I said I can't remember the last time I failed, and you can't remember the last time you succeeded. And I've had some big motherfucking fuck-ups. I told you about 2 or 3. I also missed out on worldwide wrestling, the fake wrestling, McMahon. I'm coming back from Connecticut. In those days, you're watching videotapes. And they put in a tape, and he said, "Dan, we can buy these for $10,000 a point, or $100,000 a point, whatever it was." So I watched it about 3 or 4 minutes, and there was a guy named Blassie. The wrestler had blonde, white hair. And it was obviously the wrestling was fake. And I said, fucking morons wouldn't watch this. And I was going to buy 7%. And then I said, nah, this will never get off the ground. Just like Nike wasn't going to get off the ground. Just like Microsoft wasn't going to get off the ground. I got a whole list of them. Sally's got a list of them. But getting back to your question, because Steve was arrogant enough to think, not to think, but to know that his shit didn't smell. Just like me. He was selfish, just like not you. What are you taught when you grow up? Not to be selfish, right? Instead of like the Spartans, they throw you in a pit. If you're not a perfect child, they throw you in a pit between your 6th and 8th birthday. I could throw kids in a pit easy peasy. I wouldn't even bat an eyelash. You'd have to think about it. You'd still be motherfucking spreadsheeting it. Because you want to be liked more than effective. You don't want to engage in self-deprecation. And I don't suffer from empathy, sympathy, or guilt. I'm going to say again, I do not suffer from the diseases of empathy, sympathy, or guilt. And everybody in this room does. It's a lot easier for me to make a decision than you. I mean, the things that, just like the questions. We didn't keep data the first 7, 8 years of the seminar. We kept data since the 7th or 8th year till to now. And since the 7th or 8th year till last year, 2022, I've only heard one question out of all the people that I've interfaced with that was appropriate to be asked during this seminar. Only one. 7 from 29 years, 20 and 22, 23 years, I've only heard one question. One. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And I don't say I almost fainted, but I almost fainted. Fuck. And it wasn't because that person was smart. It wasn't because he was dumb. It wasn't because, he was constipated or I don't know why. But he asked the question. And then at the end of the seminar, I made a comment about it, and I said we should give you a special award. And then he couldn't remember the question he asked, which I found hilarious. And of course, and I'm not going to tell you the question, but all his group wanted to know. They all thought they had the answer. So they spent graduation night, in addition to drinking too much, and trying to, pontificate about what he said. Now he's gone on to be successful. He's up there. But the truly most successful people up there don't know the why they're up there. They only know the how they're up there. Almost everybody in this room wants to know the why still. And I can see it in your face. And you will suffer. And it will take you longer. Instead of there used to be a saying, caution to the wind. I think that's still a saying. Instead of throwing caution to the wind and going balls to the wall, running towards a gunfire, if you've never run towards a gunfire and you're 50 years old, you're not going to start this afternoon. It's not going to happen. A 66-year-old, which we're going to talk about a little tomorrow, who threw caution to the wind, balls to the wall, and he did 39 deals in his first 3 years, 39 deals. And he's running around on his G5 now. And I don't know, he's still married to the same woman. I don't know what other curricular activities he may or may not have. But 50% of the people that you're going to listen to starting today, they were out of the childbearing years. Peter Haraszti, the Hungarian, has had 3 more kids, and his wife was supposed to be barren. Andres Milder has had 2 more kids, and 15 years ago was the last kid. And I can go on and on and on, because you stop shooting blanks. You got piss in your vinegar again. And those little sperms, 300,000 or 400,000 or 500,000 of the little shitheads, And these women that, when you're 50 years old, God love you, you don't need a kid sucking on your nipple. You know what I'm saying? So I'm hated by a number of the women. Of course, the guys, Thomas McGuire has 5 sons. His chest, he's a little teeny shit, but his chest, when he talks about him, his chest kind of grows like in a cartoon. So QLA does some other things for you. And for those of you gals that think you're barren, I wouldn't count my chickens, or you might get ready to count your chickens again. What else about Steve? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, I want to follow up. So I'm thinking about self-esteem. My question is, how did you develop that?
Well, first of all, you don't think about it. You do it. No. You don't read books about it. You do it. In the 90s, in the 2015 period till now, when during your weekly report, you got to do something that's, what did you do to scare yourself today? I'm embarrassed to say, for some of you, it's going to be, I asked a girl out on a date. I can't relate to that. A guy, 2-3 years ago, before Corona, ran on a treadmill every morning at 5:30 in New York City, and one of those 24-hour fitness places, for 3 years. And he asked the same girl, out for a coffee. When I say we're at the depths, we're through. And she said no. Fuck. I can't even relate to that. First of all, nobody ever told me no. When on my 50-year high school reunion, several years ago, Sally and I are there, and the guys are all vain, so they're not wearing their glasses. And my first wife, blonde hair, big tits. Sally, blonde hair, big tits. And so a guy that used to play professional football, he was captain of the Philadelphia Eagles football, a great athlete. And he thinks Sally is my first wife that he met at my 20-year high school reunion, and Sally's there at my 50-year high school reunion. And the girls would come up and say, are you taking care of Dan? Not 1, not 6, not 8, 15 or 20. And Sally says, after about what the fuck is this? Well, I'm taking care of you. Well, they want to know if you're taking care of me. And about half of them said, Dan never understood the word no. I'm going to say it slow for you, dance. Dan never understood the word no. Still don't. There's a slide coming up tomorrow or the next day. KNOW, knowing when to say no. Steve Jobs said, say no 1,000 times. I don't know if the Steve Jobs movie you saw last night, there's 3 different ones, was the one where he took all the stock back from these employees when they were going over the stock option plan about a week or 10 days before they went public. Was that in your movie? Okay. Well, he took all the shares back. He went up to the Woz, the co-founder. What is this? He says, these are the 86 people that were getting stock in the public offering. And he picked it up and tore it up. No, we're not giving any fucking stock away. Handshake deals. He had 86 handshake deals, apparently. That's the real world. Anything else about Steve? Yes, sir.
He refused to give credit to anyone other than the people who, performed the most. At the end of the movie, or twice when Woz wanted him to give credit to someone who he called a B player. He, no matter what, would refuse to,
Woz is a mentee of one of my mentees now, the Woz. We're going to see his picture with some of my mentees from 4 or 5 years ago. The Woz. But hardly a man or woman that's ever been in this seminar that has seen the movie about Steve Jobs is willing to do what Steve did. He lived in a mansion that he never furnished. When you move and they bring shit in boxes and packing. When he died, the boxes were still unpacked in the big house he's got there. He had in Silicon Valley, wherever the hell it was. He got the house. I don't know why I bought the house, but somebody, like me is supposed to have a house like this. But he lived out of cardboard boxes the 4 or 5 years he had the house. You'd be up there putting up little pictures, and I could just see, it must be fun. Fucking morons. Okay, anything, questions about Steve? Comments? Yes, in the back.
In one of the scenes there, Wozniak told him, you don't know anything about computers, you are not an engineer. But he said that he knows how to play the orchestra.
See, you want to know, you want to know the why. Because you're insecure, you have low self-esteem, you have low level of self-confidence, and you care what people think. I've fucked up so many things, I could write volumes. Some of the things I've fucked up. I fucked up more things than I did right in the first 25, 30 years of my career. The things I did right happened to be big, but, I've told you, I've shared 3 or 4 of them. I mean, I got a whole list of them. From not wanting to go meet the Pope because I was too fucking busy, which is... the church forgave me for that, though. I mean, they've told me that we forgave you years ago, Mr. Peña. Write another check. How high a level of forgiveness am I going to get? It's not quite that simple, but more or less it is. More or less it is. Okay, now, at the end of the seminar, I don't do this anymore, but when you can see various other people on these movies of these icons that changed the world. And you virtually have none of their attributes. We used to have a little exercise, and you have none of them. Zero. Okay? You can aspire to do some of the things, and the easiest and the most accessible to you is to run towards the gunfire. That's the easiest. And that running towards the gunfire is making associations, not friendships. These guys don't have friends. You don't see Bill Gates at the Super Bowl, do you? They don't hang. They don't fucking chill. Sally and I were on the Orient Express a few years ago, like the one in the movies, and which is a great experience. I would recommend it highly. And two things happened that didn't change my life, but the bar car of the Orient Express is small. And, they may have 300 people in but only maybe 30 can fit in the bar car. And when we walked in the bar car in this tuxedo and we're in there, and Sally and I are standing, you can't even get this close to the bar. And a young Asian couple, I think Japanese, pretty sure Japanese, the guy looked like a Japanese James Bond, and his girlfriend, wife, slut, whatever she was, looked like a Marvel superstar, and they got up and gave us their seats. And at first I was offended. I didn't like it. But a lot of people I'm old enough now that people give me seats, and people hold the door for me now. I don't like that either. And so then Sally says, it's all right, we'll sit down. Thank you very much. We appreciate your kindness. And so I was still pissed off. 2 drinks later, I'm still pissed off that they gave me their seats. But you're going to meet the kind of people that you want to rub elbows on the Orient Express. Sally and I went on the Four Seasons super yacht here a few weeks ago. And it's allegedly the most luxurious yacht made. Sally didn't like it because they served the same thing for lunch. The menu didn't change for lunch. And but see, I can eat snail, escargot, and 365 days a year. Stinking of garlic, as my wife would say. When I like something, I like it. I can eat it 3 times a day, escargot. But on that super yacht, there was nobody poor there. Nobody knew there was a recession. Nobody knew that we had a recession in 2020. Nobody knew. Literally, nobody knew. Because it's a different world. Now, some people that were there saved their whole life to be on that trip because it was about 3 or 4 or 5 times more expensive than any other cruise kind of thing that we've ever experienced. But that's why I say, get lawyers you can't afford. Join a club that you can't afford. Because anything you can afford now, there's nobody going to be there worth a shit to meet. And when you join these clubs that you can't afford, and they're going to want you to be on the Christmas committee, the Hanukkah committee, the golf committee, blah, blah, blah. No. There's only 2 committees that you will entertain, and if you press it hard enough, you'll get on them. The membership committee and the finance committee are the only 2 committees of any club on the planet that you want to have anything to do. The membership and the finance committee. And then you can not cherry pick, but kind of cherry pick who the members are and who you want to try to get close to. It's like the first time I met Costa Grazos. We're in a big meeting in a room about twice as big as the area that you're sitting. And there were 11 or 12 or 13 individual meetings round tables. And Mr. Grazos would shuffle along and he would say, it didn't work in 38, it won't work now. Didn't work in 64, it won't work now. Didn't work in 79, it won't work now. And so then he leaves. And I said, who's this little guy? He says, that's the CEO of Manassas Shipping Lines. So that very afternoon, and this is before security and before the electronic, metal detectors and all that shit, I started at the bottom floor of Olympic Tower, and I worked my way up until I found his office. Bless you. And when I found his office, fortunately for me, the door was ajar to his secretary's office, and you can see through his secretary's office to his office, about where that screen is. And so I said, I'm here to see Mr. Glassos. And she said, as most good personal assistants would say, do you have an appointment? He says, no. But I looked through to him, and then he said, and I walked into his office, and he had a banana and an apple. I still remember this. I can see that banana and apple as if it was really here on a plate, and that was his lunch, going to be his lunch. And I instantly recognized it, and I said, I know it's last minute, sir, but can I buy you lunch? He said, yeah. And so we, Le Grand Oui, which is a great restaurant, I recommend it highly, which is right across the street from Olympic Tower. But we went to the men's room first, and most of the advice that he dispensed to me were while he was taking a pee in the urinal. And that time, I remember he said, and I just introduced myself, Mr. Peña. He never called me anything but Mr. Peña, ever. I started by calling him Mr. Glassos. Then I called him Constantine, and then I called him Costa at the end of his life. And he said, as he's taking a pee, he says, use it before you lose it, Mr. Peña. Didn't even know me. That's great fucking advice, guys. Use it before you lose it. And that was the beginning of a unique, terrific relationship that I had for several years with the old man. But I went out of my way. You wouldn't have chased him down in the building. Now, because of security, I know, excuse me, sir, right then I would have done it because I know that I probably couldn't get to where he was because of security now. That's not the case now. Or then. And I stop people. And that's why, even though I don't like to be stopped walking down the street or in airports, I admire the kids when they say that. Excuse me, are you Mr. Peña? And but you don't. We're not going to go into, it's obviously, we know why you don't. Some of you will say, some of the thicker dipshits in the room, well, I don't want to invade his privacy. Or in this country, privacy. That's such a fucking cop-out, you have no idea. I could lecture a week on why you're a cunt for saying that. Or even thinking it. But Jobs, really Kroc first, these are guys that changed the world. And the other people you're going to see through the rest of the week changed the world. And in my judgment, all of them didn't change the world for the better. They didn't change the world for the better. Any other questions, comments about Mr. Jobs? Okay, thank you, Kat.